The Philadelphia Eagles came into this game never losing to the New York Jets in the regular season. Now, in the preseason, that's a little bit different. But during the regular season, the Eagles were 11-0 against the New York Jets, no matter what. If the Eagles played the Jets, no matter if it's at Lincoln Financial Field or if it's at the Meadowlands or if it's at MetLife or if it's at the Vet, the Eagles would always beat the New York Jets. The Jets are one of two teams I think the Eagles have never lost to. Teams that the Eagles have never lost to, or cities. I guess Houston is the other city that the Eagles have never lost to, but that could change. I have no idea. But going into the game, we thought that it was going to be Jalen Hurts playing, but it turned out that he was hurt. Ironically, he was hurt. I guess he suffered an injury against the New York Giants, and I was really hoping that he was going to play because he came out and he said that the loss was on him, and I really wanted to see him play because I wanted to see how he was going to rebound from that horrible loss against the Giants where he threw 3 interceptions, and he basically cost the Eagles the game with those interceptions. And I think the Jets, they came out and they said that they thought that Jalen Hurts was going to play as well. So I think the Eagles did a decent job doing a switcheroo on the Jets, and Gardner Minshew ended up starting for the Philadelphia Eagles, which Gardner Minshew was the quarterback who the Eagles got in a trade with Jacksonville. It was like a 6th round selection we traded with Jacksonville. And for a guy who is a backup quarterback who is supposed to be like a game manager, the guy played well. Now, it's against the Jets, so I'm not going to get very excited, and I'm going to kind of discuss that later on in the podcast. But I will commend him for the game that he played. Almost 250 passing yards. We haven't really seen that with Jalen Hurts. 2 touchdowns, no turnovers. That's pretty good for a backup. That's pretty good for a game manager. And I think he probably could have done more. It's just that the Eagles were... I think that as like a game manager quarterback, you don't want to make mistakes. And in the second half, the Eagles kind of took their foot off the pedal and kind of wanted to make sure that they, winded down the clock and burn as much clock as they possibly could. And that's exactly what they did. I think in the third quarter, the Jets only had the ball for like 40 seconds. The defense, early in the game, it was looking like it was going to be a shootout because the Eagles couldn't stop the Jets at all. The Eagles weren't blitzing. The Eagles, they weren't playing strong on the receivers with their corners. They were playing far off, and when you play far off, you get killed by slant patterns all the time. What really killed the Jets in this game was the fact that they kind of shot themselves in the foot a few times. Like, the short pass was really working for them, and when we got them in I think it was 1 3rd and 7 situation right before halftime, they kind of had to play the long game. And sometimes when you have to play the long game, your 3rd and 7s, your 3rd and 8s, and more, you kind of get yourself stuck in situations where you're a rookie quarterback and you have to make sure that you keep getting first downs. And they were getting those first downs early in the game, but then once they, I feel like once the Eagles had taken the momentum over, the game was kind of lost for them. Also, their kicker couldn't kick extra points. So at a certain point in time, they scored 3 consecutive touchdowns, but they were chasing extra points. Like, they missed 2 extra points, and then they scored a 3rd touchdown, and instead of going for the extra point, they went for 2, and they didn't get it. So that was another thing that really ruined the game for the Jets. As for the Eagles in the 3rd and 4th quarter, they had that game on lock, right? The Eagles were stopping the Jets. The Jets didn't score a single point after halftime. And, the Eagles had it handled. The defense had it handled. Was it a pretty game for the defense? No, it wasn't a pretty game for the defense. It really hasn't been very many pretty games for the Eagles all season besides the win against the Lions and the win against the Falcons. But as it was a great team game. The only thing that I have to criticize the Philadelphia Eagles on before I get to the injuries in this game, and boy, oh boy, there were some really big injuries in this game. The one thing that I need to criticize the Eagles offense on was red zone offense. The red zone offense has been absolutely terrible all season long. And if the Eagles expect to be a playoff team and you can't convert for touchdowns in the red zone, then you're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere as a team. The fact of the matter is that if you have first and goal at the 6, there's no excuse for not getting a touchdown. None at all. None at all for not getting a touchdown. And this season for the Eagles, we've seen certain periods of time where because we don't have our big back, we can't get those touchdowns. We can't plunge the ball in for the touchdown. And there were points in this game where the Eagles could have used like an RPO or something like that, because Gardner Minshew was kind of dealing pretty well on the RPOs, and one thing that we see with Gardner Minshew that we didn't see with Jalen Hurts is that we didn't see any ineligible players downfield. Every time we failed on the RPO, Gardner Minshew was running to the line of scrimmage. And one in which time we kind of avoided a sack because the defender grabbed Minshew by the face mask. A few times we got bailed out by the refs. I don't like to see that, especially if my team loses. Robert Saleh has every right. Dude's not whining. He had every right to be upset at the game. I think there was the only play in which he got upset at that he probably really shouldn't have was the 4th and inches call where Minshew ran it for a first down and they called it a 4th down, and they reviewed it and they found it was a first down because it was a first down. It was one of those things where Minshew, he got the first down and then they pushed him back after he got it, so it didn't look like he got it. So it's tough when something like that happens and you're a young head coach and your team isn't doing very well, but I think that Robert Saleh is building the pieces on that team, and I think he really believes in his players, and that's something that is something that I feel like is extremely positive. As for injuries, we had a lot of injuries in this game. Steven Nelson, I don't know how long he's going to be injured for. Miles Sanders, he's the first Philadelphia Eagles running back in, I think, like 3 years to go over 100 yards in a game, 120. He got injured again. And the last one is Jason Kelce. And that's a big one because he's our center. Right after he went out, Nate Herbig, the backup center, he went up there and he snapped the ball right over Minshew's head, which I didn't think we should have been playing shotgun in that position. We should be running clock, and something that just shouldn't have been happening. And it resulted in a negative play. And you're thinking, we could have been playing a team like Washington or Dallas or New York, who all three of those teams are better than the Jets. That's something that you can't have happen. You cannot have your center snap the ball over the head of your quarterback. And even when Kelce was in, he was doing very low snaps. Jason Kelce is not a shotgun center. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to people. He's a great player. He's a great blocker, but he's not great at snapping. And that's a big one, because when he came off the field, you could see it in his face. He was shaking his head like torn. Something's torn. I don't know why there's a flea going around in here. What do I live in a garbage dump? I don't know.